The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings, I'm Admiral Owen Swart, Commanding Officer, USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for stardate negative 268917.1. I am the Admiral in question, and today we're going to be talking about our most important mission. Which is the blood donation missions. If you're a member of the Dauntless, you will remember that we've just gone through one of these. This past weekend, we had our regular blood donation mission, so hopefully this will all still be fresh in your mind, and hopefully that also means you'll have some questions for me about all of this so that we can address those as we go along. But for the sake of posterity and for the sake of new members and people who have not yet signed up, we're going to be covering these blood donation missions in excruciating detail today so that we can make sure we've answered any potential questions that may arise in discussions about these in the future. All right, so you might notice things look a little different around here today. Cape Town is experiencing a severe winter storm at the moment. It is bucketing down with rain outside. Normally, daylight is sufficient for me to light these, but I've had to resort to artificial light this time, which is why my color balance looks a little bit weird. You can even see outside my window there. It's pretty dark outside. It's darker outside than it is inside here. So that's why things look weird. I haven't changed my lighting setup, at least not intentionally. It was just all I could do to manage with that situation. All right, but let's get on with blood donation missions. So what do I mean by blood donation mission? So the short version of that is that once every 9 weeks or so, the Dauntless crew goes out together and we donate blood together. But why do we do that? Well, that's a good question. So let's go back to our mission, right? The real reason why we're here, which is to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of mankind to the people of Africa and the Middle East. That's our overarching mission statement. But that is clarified in a number of standing orders, which give us more specific direction in ways that we can fulfill that directive. So the first one is around promoting Star Trek itself. And standing order number 2, which is arguably more important, which is to encourage initiatives to help bring about the future envisioned in Star Trek. So the future envisioned in Star Trek is basically a utopia, a world in which many, if not all, of the problems facing the world today have been largely eradicated, principally through the advancement of technology, but also through shifts in social attitudes towards each other and the let me help philosophy, which we've covered in multiple of these briefings before. Essentially, the idea is that let me help are words that are so important, they are more important even than I love you. And they are the crux, the philosophical outlook that underpins the fictional United Federation of Planets in the future, the 23rd, 24th, and so on centuries, which allows those worlds to become a place which we would consider utopic, where everybody is just working towards uh, uplifting everybody else with a rising tide that lifts all boats. The question of what's in it for me is, if not completely eradicated, at least secondary. It's a world of abundance where money, although they often say that it doesn't exist, it does exist. We do see it operational from time to time in Star Trek. Money is not important. It's the acquisition of wealth is no longer the guiding force of our lives. We work to better ourselves, is the quote from Jean-Luc Picard. So that's why we're doing this, right? So that's why we have an interest in encouraging bringing about the world envisioned in Star Trek, because that world looks like a good place and we would like to see it become a reality. So the way we do that is by doing little things here or there to try and bring the world closer to that envisioned utopic ideal society. And the first way we do that is by helping people who need help. We are people just like anybody else, but we have a vision and a mission to undertake whatever we can do to help make life easier for other people. So we want to help people who need help by doing whatever we can to make their lives easier. And one of the ways we can do that is by saving lives. And how do you save lives? Well, the single most efficient way of saving a life, if you are not a billionaire or if you are not a medical professional, the easiest way and most efficient way of saving somebody's life is by donating blood. By giving a single unit of blood, you can save up to 3 lives. It takes less than an hour worth of your time. You can only do it once every couple of months. We'll go into more details about that in a moment. But essentially, it is a very effective way of saving people's lives. If you're not able to donate billions of rands or dollars, and if you're not able to wield a scalpel and save multiple lives a day, for the rest of us, donating blood is the single most efficient way of saving people's lives. And um, I'm sure if you've been around on this planet as long as I have, or even a fraction of the amount of time that I have been on it, you have been touched by this in your life. I've got members of my family, members of this crew, whose lives have been extended, saved through the tiniest transfusion of a unit of blood that was selflessly given by some anonymous stranger who walked into a blood donation center somewhere in the vicinity, endured a few moments of discomfort, and that unit of blood saved my loved one's life. Um, and likewise, I have members of my family who did not survive because they failed to receive the unit of blood that they needed in a timeliest fashion, received no blood, and died as a result. It simply is a matter of donating a unit of blood can save up to 3 people's lives. Why 3 people? Well, a single unit of whole blood can be split into 3 different blood products. Each one of those products can be used to save a different person's life, potentially. So that is why it's so important that we do this. This is why we have chosen blood donation as being our most important mission. This is our primary fulfillment of Standing Order number 2 of the mission of the Dauntless. But it's not only about the recipient. There are also some health benefits to the donor. So if you are a regular blood donor, there are some things that you can get out of it too. So if you feel like asking the question, what's in it for me? It's not only about the person who receives your blood. For starters, it reduces your risk of heart attack. So there have been extensive studies done supporting this, that it actually, if you are a regular blood donor, it can actually mitigate your risk of heart attack. It helps to balance your iron levels. High blood iron levels consistently over time can increase your risk of certain cancers, and being a regular blood donor can help to manage your blood iron levels, which can reduce the risk of those cancers. And also, one of the things is that every time you donate blood, you're receiving a kind of mini physical. The staff at the blood donation clinic are first they subject you to a lifestyle questionnaire so that they know which questions to ask. They'll also do little biological checks on you. They'll check your blood iron for starters. They'll check your blood pressure, your heart rate, that kind of thing, your temperature sometimes. Even if necessary, they'll do things like a cholesterol screening and that kind of thing. So in other words, you're getting a little mini physical every time you donate blood, and they are then able to highlight any potential health risks that might be arising. This has again happened for me as a regular blood donor. I get one of these little mini physicals several times a year. And what happened to me a few years back was they noticed that I was somewhat anemic, which is quite unusual for an adult male. So I was referred to my physician, who diagnosed me with an intolerance of a particular supplement that I was taking. If it had gone on unchecked, I could have suffered severe kidney damage. But because it was caught in time, it was caught early through one of these mini screenings, I was able to stop taking that supplement and fully recovered within I think it was 3 months was the period during which I wasn't allowed to donate blood because I was in recovery from that position. Easy as that. That was just a healthy little screening test that I took without even intending to do so. I was just there to donate blood. They caught that issue, and it could have been a big problem for me, but it wasn't, because I saw a nurse who was able to help me in that way. So it lowers your risk of cancer. And also, of course, the primary beneficiary when you're giving blood is, of course, the person who receives that unit of blood, the person who's suffered an injury or an illness of some kind, and they are in need of a blood transfusion, which they would then receive as a result of the unit that you've given, you've entered into the system. Got a couple of comments. Captain Van says, do not pitch up with jars of blood because they ask lots of odd questions like whose blood is it and where did you get it from? Yes, rather leave the blood extraction to the professionals. They are professional phlebotomists who are actually very skilled at it. So I've noticed, having again been around a long time, that nurses in hospitals who are medical professionals who are working all day doing things like extracting blood, because it's not the only thing they do, they tend to be less practiced and less skilled at doing it in a painless and comfortable way than the phlebotomists who work at blood donor clinics. Because of course, the ones who work at the clinics, that's all they do. They only draw blood day in, day out. I mean, in addition to, paperwork and that kind of thing. But that is their primary function, is simply inserting the needle with minimal discomfort to extract blood and then packing it all away. Whereas nurses in hospitals, that's only one of many things that they do. So actually, the sisters who work at, I say sisters, nursing sister is a standard title for a person who does that kind of work here in South Africa. I'm not being sexist, that's just what it's called. The sisters who do that kind of work here, they specialize in phlebotomy, and so they tend to be rather good at it. Every time I've had to go to a different medical facility to get blood drawn or blood test or something like that, it tends to be a lot more uncomfortable than when I'm donating blood. That's my experience. Your experience may vary, but that's what I have found. So yes, leave it to the professionals. Don't bring your blood in a jar. Let them do it for you. Colonel Hubert says, blood donation also saved my father's life when he had internal bleeding. Exactly. Yeah, this is something that has happened to many of us. We've all been touched. Probably all of us have been touched by this in some way or another. It's such an important thing. And as of now, there is no synthetic substitute for blood. People are working on this. Within a few years, no doubt, there will become available a synthetic blood that will be able to replace blood donation, and then we won't need to do this anymore. Long may that. Let's hope that that day comes soon, because factory produced blood will probably be cheaper and easier to produce than relying on the kindness of strangers to donate. But until then, until that gap has been filled, it's up to us to do that. So we are the blood donors. Blood donors. We are the source of that blood for all the people who need those transfusions. All right, so that's why we do it. So what is the structure in which we do it? So we do it in a thing called what we call a multi-vector away mission. So a mission is a thing that we do, which is distinct from the mission. Again, I've done briefing videos on the mission or our mission and individual missions. So these blood donation missions are discrete missions which serve the larger mission. I know the terminology is confusing, but that's just what we're stuck with. So these are specific missions. An away mission is a mission where members of the Dauntless crew will get together in person, typically outside of their homes, and go do a thing together out in the real world, as opposed to doing a thing together online. So it's an away mission. A multi-vector away mission means that multiple away teams, so that's multiple groups of in-person members of the Dauntless meeting in person in different places around the world, are all doing the same thing together at the same time, or within a given time window. Obviously, we have members from different time zones, so we have to be accommodating for that. So multi-vector away missions typically span a 24-hour period, during which those away teams are encouraged to make their own arrangements to go out and do the away mission on their own schedules. So as long as they complete the mission within the time window, then then that counts as having been completed in that way. So multi-vector away missions are missions where multiple away teams engage in the same activity in different locations simultaneously. So that's what that is. Multiple away teams. Our away teams are groups of members based in different cities around the world. Multiple away teams going out and doing the same mission, but on their own, semi-autonomously. So how do we... Oh, there's one more thing about blood donation missions that's important to notice, and that is that our blood donation missions, because they are in service of Standing Order Number 2, they are what we call Priority 1 missions. So Priority 1 missions are events of critical importance to the existence and overall mission of the USS Dauntless, specifically as it relates to Standing Orders Number 1 and Number 2. So we're going to jump ahead to Standing Order 2. These events are core to the philosophy and purpose of the USS Dauntless and have real-world life or death consequences, as we've explored momentarily, associated with participation, and would include missions that have an active philanthropic focus, especially blood donations. Participation in these events is mandatory for all active duty members within the sector. If unable to attend, a negative RSVP is required, along with an explanation of reason for dereliction. So because these missions are so important, we consider it obligatory, compulsory for all active duty members of the Dauntless to attend these missions. And if you can't attend for whatever reason, if you're physically incapable of attending, you need to let us know why, because it's kind of core to the very existence of the Dauntless that we do this. This is our chosen mission. This is the thing that we do. If you can't do it, you need to let us know why. So, crew members who fail to attend or RSVP negatively for the event may be assigned a fail to report in flag on their crew evaluation, which will count against consideration for future recognition and advancement opportunities. That's how seriously we take this, right? So we try to avoid any kind of negative consequences for not doing things. Typically, you are welcome to choose your own level of involvement, and if you don't show up at a thing, you don't show up, right? The more things you show up at, the more recognition and rewards you will receive. But generally speaking, if you don't show up at a thing, then that's just how it is. But when it comes to priority 1 missions, because they are so important, we have to introduce a negative consequence for people who don't attend. If you don't pitch up, if you don't respond, we're going to have to add a flag to your file, which may cause us, if those flags start to stack up, may cause us to reevaluate whether or not you should continue to be an active duty member of the Dauntless. That's how life works here on the Dauntless. All right, so how do we put together a blood donation mission? So this is a thing that takes a fair amount of time, more time than you might expect, but a lot less work than you might imagine. So the first thing we want to do is we need to schedule it. We need to decide when these missions are going to happen. And fortunately for everybody, that work has already been done. If you look at the schedule on the Dauntless website, you go to the schedule page right there, you'll see a calendar all of our events. So this includes all of our various missions and away missions that have been scheduled over the next month, as well as various other interesting information. So this is the month view, so you can see what's coming up over the next few weeks. You can switch to a week view or an agenda view, which shows us just a list of the upcoming events. And you can scroll through the various months to see when the next one is. So we look at today, where is today? This is the yellowish one is today. So just a few days ago, we had this multi-vector away mission blood donation. So that was our last blood donation mission. That was on the 6th of July. Blood donation missions can only take place once every 9 weeks. I'll go through that, why that's the case in a moment. So if we skip ahead 9 weeks, we go to the month of September. There we can see our next blood donation mission is already scheduled on the 7th of September. So we could skip another week, 9 weeks ahead again. And there we have another multi-vector away mission on the 9th of November. So these have already been scheduled. How far in advance have they been scheduled? All the way. So Google Calendar currently allows us to schedule missions all the way up to the year 2032. So that is how far in advance we have scheduled these blood donation missions for the next 9 years. Every 9 weeks, they are already on the calendar. So if you wanted to add this to your Google Calendar so you can see when the next one is, you come to the schedule page, you click the plus Google Calendar button down here, and it'll add it to your Google Calendar as an overlay so that you can see when those things are coming up, and also all other Dauntless activities. It's quite important and quite useful, which is why we did a whole briefing on the concept of calendars and how they are used not that long ago. All right, so that is scheduling, which has already been done. We've already decided when these things are going to happen. Now, why do we do it every 9 weeks? So there is the international standard of of how frequently you are able to give blood is once every 56 days, which is once every 8 weeks. Some jurisdictions will prefer it slightly more, less frequently than that, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. Some will allow it more frequently than that. But generally speaking, most jurisdictions, South Africa is included, 8 weeks is the minimum period between which you can donate blood. The reason for that being that when you donate blood, you've only got about 7 liters of blood in your body when, sort of an average sized human adult. And when you donate, you're giving about half a liter of that away. And it takes your body some time to replenish those resources. You can replenish the fluid within, you just have a buddy bottle of Coke, that'll do that trick. But then all the stuff that's in the blood, the plasma and the red blood cells and all that kind of thing, takes some time to replenish. And the amount of time it'll take you to get back to sort of a normal level again is usually around 8 weeks on average for a normal adult human. And that's with some safety margin worked in. Now, we on the Dauntless allow a 9-week gap between these blood donation missions. So why 9 weeks? That's because sometimes we get there on the blood donation day and you're not able to donate for some reason or another. Perhaps you forgot that you had a headache the day before and you took a painkiller, and painkillers will disqualify you. Certain painkillers will disqualify you from donating blood for a couple of days. So what happens is you might need to come back a few days later and try again. Perhaps your blood pressure was too low or your iron was too low or something like that, and they told you to please come back in a few days and try again. So you've got then, if you fail to be able to donate on the mission date, you've got another week in which to try again to donate your unit of blood. And if you are successful in that, then we will have our next mission 9 weeks after that mission. So you've still got that 8 week refractory period available with that margin for error for having to retry. So every 9 weeks, we do one of these blood donation missions, which means we end up having them 5 or 6 times a year. We try to have them 6 times a year, but sometimes it will be 5, depending on how the dates line up. So that's how that works. Every 9 weeks, we have a blood donation mission, and these missions are scheduled for at least the next 9 years. That's as far in advance as we are able to schedule them, but we will continue to schedule them on that schedule for as long as we can practically do so. Then once the scheduling is done, which it already is, we then move on to the planning stage. So for each individual mission, we have to figure out what the specific details are of that specific implementation of the mission. And those details are going to vary from one away team to another. So what will happen is when we're getting close, typically within a couple of weeks of the next blood donation mission, the chief medical officer will post this list on the team leaders channel in the Dauntless Discord. So if you are the highest ranking member in your away team, you are a member, you are then by default the team leader for that away team, and you have been added to the team leaders channel on Discord. You'll find it under the command category. At least that's how it is today. We might restructure that at some point in the future, but as of now, that's where it is. That is where the away team leaders are able to discuss matters that relate to different teams and how they are structured, how they operate and coordinate with each other, and especially how we coordinate multi-vector assault missions. So the chief medical officer will drop the latest version of this list, and what this list is each of the currently active away teams, as well as the most commonly or easiest found blood donation organization available in that sector at the time. So away team Alpha is based in Johannesburg, South Africa. There is only one blood donor center, or at least organization in that sector, and that is the South African National Blood Service, SANBS. And here we will provide a link so that the away team leaders can find the relevant information that they need. And beta team, beta sector, which is it's in the US. Versity is the primary one, but of course the American Red Cross operates there as well. Theta team, we've got the Helena Red Cross Blood Donation Center in that area, and so on. So each of the active away teams can go and look up where the relevant donor centers are in their area. So you want to have enough time. So 2 weeks is usually about the window, so that the away team leaders can digest that information. They can look up the relevant info on those websites and then present their information to their away teams to then figure out where they're going to meet up. Some away teams prefer to meet at the same place every time. Some away teams prefer to move around, especially larger sectors where people have to travel 45 minutes to an hour to get to the nearest blood donation mission. You want to make sure that not everybody is being inconvenienced every time. So perhaps in a large sector like Cape Town, South Africa, or Johannesburg, South Africa, you might want to move around and have your blood donation mission in a different spot each time. Or maybe you want to find a central spot that everybody can agree to travel to, or something like that. Come to some kind of an arrangement in that way. But in order to make that arrangement, you need to know where all the blood donor centers are in the area, and that's the information that is found here. So if you go to, for example, the SANBS website, here is a map of all the SANBS blood donor centers in the country. We can zoom in on Alpha sector and we can see where they all are. And what the team leaders can then do is take that information to their away teams and have a discussion about which blood donor center is the most convenient or effective or practical for everybody to attend. Now, where would this happen? So each away team has their own channel on Discord. Away team Alpha has Alpha Team channel, Beta Team has Beta Team channel, and so on, which has been set aside, created by engineering for the team to have those kinds of discussions. But it's really up to the team leader to decide where that conversation happens. He or she may choose to direct message each member of the team and have that conversation in private, or has set up a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group or anything like that if they choose. But we have provided, as the Dauntless, we've provided a Discord channel, which we recommend be used for that. So wherever you can have that conversation where you can discuss the relevant information and come to that decision, that is where that would happen. What is typically the easiest way to do it, although the mission has two parts, and we'll go through those parts now. Well, let me just talk about it now. The mission has two parts, which is first you have to have a meal together. Now, you don't have to, but we recommend that this is a good part of the mission for two reasons. One, blood donors before donating blood are recommended that they have a hearty meal within several hours of donating blood. You don't want to be donating blood on an empty stomach. That's going to make you pass out. So you want to have had a good meal recently by the time you donate. So we may as well make that part of the mission. So we gather for breakfast or lunch or whatever it is before donating blood, and that's just part of the mission. The other reason we do that is because that's really kind of the social aspect of the mission, especially for the larger away teams. That gives the team an opportunity to spend a bit of time together, to have a chat, to have a meal, to maybe play some games or something like that over a table, and have a good time together before going downstairs and having the moment of discomfort giving blood together. That is really the primary social component of the blood donation mission, is the meal together. But what you want to do first is you first want to decide which blood donation center you want to go to, because that is where the most important part of the mission happens. Once you've agreed on where that is, it's then a lot easier to find a spot nearby, where a restaurant where you can have your breakfast or lunch or whatever together. Alpha Team says we had cake afterwards. Lol. There's nothing wrong with that. Having cake afterwards is perfectly acceptable, as long as the blood donors have had something to eat relatively close to donating before doing so. So we recommend having a meal beforehand. But that, again, if your team decides that that's not practical for you, that's fine too. So you want to have those two places relatively close together. Deciding on the blood donation center is typically the first step in figuring out where your away mission is going to take place. It makes the most sense to have your blood donation center and your restaurant in the same center, in the same building, or down the street from each other within easy walking distance, so that you don't have to worry about translocating from one location to another in the middle of a mission. You can have it all take place in one spot, which is great. All right, so once all of that has been established, once you've made all your plans and your team have all chimed in on what venues they think are appropriate, and everybody has been informed of when and where they're going to be meeting, we then arrive at the day of the blood donation mission. So now it's the day, the sun has risen, we have completed it, and so we are ready to go. Some away teams like Tau Team like to go for a 5K run early on a Saturday morning, so we might go do that first and then go to the blood donation mission after. But here we are at the time where the blood donation mission is about to happen. So first thing that happens is the team meets up, typically over a meal. Apparently Alpha Team likes to do it backwards, but that's fine, that's not a problem. So again, you want to have a nice hearty meal together so that the blood donors who are going to be giving blood have an opportunity to stack up on those calories so that they don't pass out immediately afterwards. There are most blood donor centers will offer snacks, beverages, and various other little treats just to act as a buffer against that kind of thing on the day. Colonel Hubert from Alpha Team says we're not morning shift. That's fine. It's okay if you go a little later in the day. It's not that big a deal. Brunch is also acceptable. But you don't want to be donating blood on an empty stomach. So this is the best, is the most social part of the meal. It's of the mission, is having a meal together either before or after. You want to be gathering up all the members of the team, make sure that everybody is present. Now, I should have mentioned this earlier, but this is a good time to say these missions don't necessarily have to be limited only to Dauntless crew members, right? So ideally, we want to have every single Dauntless crew member attending one of these missions, active duty in particular, but we would also like to encourage reserves to come and join us too. But there's nothing preventing any of us. In fact, we strongly encourage bringing what we call civilians to join us for these missions. Civilians are people who are not members of Starfleet. they have blood too, and they can also donate that blood, and we would love to involve them in this kind of a situation. So civilians are not only welcome, they are encouraged to join us. So if you have friends or family who are not members of Starfleet, but would still be interested in joining to donate blood, please bring them along. That would be great. That just makes the whole social side of it that much more engaging for everybody. And you know what, it even becomes a recruiting opportunity. So let's say those friends or family might have a vague interest in Star Trek, or have heard about Starfleet and are intrigued in learning about more about it. This gives them an opportunity to interact with other Starfleet members so that they can learn more about it, and perhaps even enjoy uh, uh, enjoy Star Trek and then join Starfleet in the future. So that's a great way to do that. So engaging civilians in the mission is quite important too, if you can possibly swing that. Once the meal is complete, you then head down to the blood donor clinic and do the actual blood donation itself. So it looks typically like this if you haven't already done it. The process is a little more involved than that. As I mentioned, you typically arrive, fill in a self-exclusion questionnaire, which will ask you a bunch of questions about your present health and your recent lifestyle that might cause risk factors for donating blood. And if you pass the test, then they will then do their little mini physical. They check your blood pressure, your blood iron, your pulse, and that kind of thing. If you pass all of those tests, you will then be ushered down onto one of these comfortable chairs where you'll be hooked up to one of these bags, and you will start to bleed into them. Uh, Captain Frank Hernan says draining two arms is for veterans. Okay, so yes, so this artwork is not as precise as you might imagine. Typically, you're only bleeding from one arm, but you do often bleed into two bags, one big one, roughly that size, sort of half liter, and then usually one a little bag as well, because they would need to take a few samples for testing to make sure that everything is fine. So even if you passed all of your pre-screening tests, they still need to make sure that your blood is safe for transmission to another human. So they will check it for all kinds of other stuff that you can't pick up on a pre-screening test. So there are several people in this image, and that is on purpose. So you've got the officer who's lying on the chair and he's donating blood. So I just pretend he's only giving from the one arm because that's usually how that works. His job is relatively straightforward. He just has to lie there and bleed. He typically has to squeeze his hand a little bit just to make sure that the blood is flowing correctly. And when the bag is at the requisite fullness level, it will be disconnected and we're ready to go. So the lady here, typically not a Starfleet officer, will usually be one of the nursing sisters on duty at the donor center. She's represented here by a Starfleet officer, will be the one who will be handling all of that work. But then we have two other officers standing there next to him. Now, those two have a very important job as well. Those are the non-donating members. So now, roughly 25% of all humans are not capable of donating blood for a variety of reasons, physical reasons or whatever. You simply cannot donate blood. About 1 in 4 people are in that category. Now, we want to make sure that those people understand just how important their presence is at a blood donation mission, even if they are not able to give blood themselves. Then there are a number of things that those people can do. So what is it that non-donors do at a blood donation mission? Well, any number of things. They can do things like transport. So if one of the blood donors doesn't have a ride to the blood donation mission, a non-donor can offer them transport to the mission. That would be very helpful. Just simply offering them encouragement or company during the process. It is fairly uncomfortable giving blood. Painful is probably a bit of an overstatement, but it is uncomfortable. You have to sit in this one spot with the thing in your arm for a while. It's not a very pleasant experience. It's much more pleasant if you have someone with you to have a chat with and to keep you company. And that's a very important part of the process as well. Another aspect is photography. So for for our reporting, our internal reporting, as well as for our communications department, publishing things to social media, we like to have photographs of members of the Dauntless doing interesting things, or even videos of people doing things. So non-donating members could be taking photos of the people who are giving blood, either for reporting or for social media. Either way, it could work. You could just be whipping out your pad and taking some pics. And then you could also be doing like Alpha Team did, go for a cup of coffee after, and the non-donors could always offer to pick up the check. I'm not saying that you have to do that, but that's something that you might choose to do as a non-donor, supporting the donors in your team. So non-donors are very important to the process. We want to make sure that non-donors are included in the whole thing because they are critical. I mean, obviously, the blood donors are the reason why the mission is happening, but non-donors are important too. And if you're in the situation where now, plenty of our away teams are what we call one-man away teams. So we have a single member alone in a given sector, and there are no other Dauntless members in that sector with them. Um, and let's say that that member is not a blood donor. What should that member do in order to participate in one of these missions? Well, the first thing that that member should do is try to recruit new members. I've done another briefing video on how to expand your away team. That is hard work and it takes a long time. So it's not going to be a very quick process to add new members to your team. But you should be working on that if you want to have more people join you. It's part of our standing order number 1, which is promoting the message of Star Trek to the people of Africa and the Middle East. So you want to be doing a fair amount of that. But in the meantime, while you're waiting for that to pay off, because it can take a long time, I remind you about the aspect of involving civilians in this mission. This mission is so important that it can't be limited to just Dauntless members. We want to include as many people as possible, and guaranteed, you know, people, you have friends or family members or colleagues who are, if not regular blood donors, then occasional blood donors, and they, I'm pretty sure, would be persuadable to come along with you or have you come along with them when they go to donate blood. You can, again, offer them all kinds of support, whether that's buying them breakfast or buying them coffee, giving them transport, or just keeping them company while they're donating blood. The tricky part will be persuading them to shift their donation schedule to match our schedule so that you can have them donate within our multi-vector away mission window. But I'm pretty sure most people would be amenable to that if they understood how important it is to us. They don't have to be a member of the Dauntless. They don't have to be a Star Trek fan. They don't have to be the slightest bit interested in any of that kind of thing. But if you are able to support somebody who's donating blood, so much the better. And if by some miracle you don't know a single person in your entire city who donates blood from time to time, you can still go. You can still show up at the blood donation center with some home-baked muffins or something like that and offer them to the blood donor staff. I would recommend not offering muffins to the other blood donors. The blood donation centers that we've spoken to about that kind of thing in the past typically have issues with that. Not that they are ungrateful, just that they cannot accept food donations for other blood donors that do not come in sealed packages. They need to have been prepared under specific conditions and certified with the appropriate authorities, and unfortunately home-baked goods don't meet those requirements. But the staff are perfectly capable of accepting kind donations of things like muffins or cupcakes if you feel so inclined. So that would be a very nice thing that you could do. You might even offer to help them out in any way. I don't know if they would be able to or amenable to accepting volunteer assistance in your jurisdiction, but it wouldn't hurt to ask if there's anything you can do to help for an hour or two on a Saturday. So those are things that you as a non-donor can do to participate in the blood donation mission. You can either support the donors that you know. If you don't know a single donor, as unlikely as that is, there are still things that you can do to support the donation center staff because they're the ones who are assisting in saving lives. So once the mission is complete, you've had your pre-donation meal, you've had your donation experience, and if your away team chooses to do that, you've had your post-donation coffee, and everybody has gone home. What happens next? Well, it's back to the team leader's job again, which is now to submit the mission report. So because of this being a multi-vector away mission, there are two ways of thinking about who actually commanded the mission. There is the overall mission commander, which for a medical mission would be the chief medical officer, who has commanded the entire, commanded the entire multi-vector away mission. Or you can consider it that each individual team, their specific team leader or the ranking officer present at each away team could be considered the mission commander for their specific leg of the mission. Now you can decide as the mission commander which one of those you would like to do. If you feel like being considering yourself the commander of your leg of the mission, you can go through and submit a Dauntless mission report like this, like you would for a normal away mission. Strictly speaking, that's not necessary here. The only person who has to submit this report on behalf of the entire mission is the mission commander, the chief medical officer. But you as an individual away team leader are welcome to do so too. You can fill in all the relevant details here. What you as an individual team leader might choose to do instead for this kind of mission is simply go to the Dauntless Discord, typically go to the bridge channel and post the photos of who was there. This allows us to, or allows the mission commander, who is the chief medical officer, to take a roll call of all other members who were present, and also to see which members were present in uniform, which matters for logging for mission. Uh, it's for rank promotion purposes. We want to know who attended and who attended in uniform. We also want to know who commanded, but that is typically obvious. It would be useful information to know which members of your team actually donated blood and which ones were there to support. That's not relevant for record keeping for the Dauntless. We technically don't distinguish between those two things, but there are awards at the regional and Starfleet level that might kick in when we're talking about somebody who's actually donated blood as opposed to simply supporting with the donating blood. So the people who actually do the bleeding might be entitled to awards that would not be available to everybody who was present at the mission. So you would want to make that distinction just so we can see who actually gave blood and who didn't. On the Dauntless, we're not really interested in that distinction, but higher up in Starfleet, they might be. So photographs are important. Another thing that's important for a priority 1 mission is apologies. So again, it is mandatory for all members of the Dauntless to attend a priority 1 mission. But some people physically can't attend for whatever reason. They're stuck in hospital, they're on an airplane, they're at work or something like that. They can't get away. That happens, right? Life happens, life gets in the way. So those people need to let us know in advance that they're not going to be attending and why. And those apologies need to be recorded. So typically those apologies would be fielded directly to the chief medical officer, but sometimes an individual member might only mention it to their team leader while they're having the discussion around location or something like that. When those conversations happen, those apologies need to be included in your report to the chief medical officer. Perhaps you don't want to broadcast those on the bridge. Perhaps you want to provide those to the CMO in a private message. That's acceptable too, as long as that information finds its way to the chief medical officer so that it can be recorded on the mission report. Let's see, we've got Colonel Hubert says the bags are usually lower when donating, but it's the thought that counts. Oh yes, we're back at this AI generated artwork. Fortunately, AI, having never experienced the actual physical sensation of donating blood, had to sort of imagine what this looked like, and it thought that the blood donation bags would be hung up on these drip hooks. Obviously, yes, the Colonel is correct that the blood donation bags would typically be below so that the gravity could be used to assist moving the blood into the bags. Captain Van says, what is missing from that pic is the people like me that heaves and who wants to faint, bribe with cake. Yes, well, that is a thing you're going to need to do some work on, because that heaving is not going to work very well. You're going to have to build up your resilience on that one. Colonel Hubert says, the mission says dress code class B, C civilian, so uniform isn't mandatory. Yes, correct. Uniform is not mandatory. It's strongly recommended. We like to have uniforms when we're out in the world, but it's not required. In fact, what we would very much like is for everybody to be wearing their Class B uniforms, because that's the SDU, the standard duty uniforms, because it's the one that's most conspicuous and most identifies with our kind of brand, as it were. But these are not the most practical uniforms for donating blood. So they have long sleeves, rolling the sleeve up to get to the part of your body where you donate blood, which is here on the inside of your elbow, can be quite difficult. So a Class C uniform, usually the LU is one that we would recommend, but uniforms are actually not required at all. The important part is that you get there and give blood. What you're wearing at the time is of secondary importance. We would still like you to be wearing uniform, but it's not the end of the world if you can't or don't want to. All right, so we were talking about reporting. We made sure that the roll call makes its way to the chief medical officer. The photos of who donated, so photographs like this of whoever was present, need to make their way to the chief medical officer, as well as apologies for people who couldn't make it, so that the CMO has a list of everybody who responded to the mission. Then at the end of the month, the mission report is going to be processed as part of the crew evaluations process by the command staff. So the command staff has to look through all of the mission reports for the month and attribute mission attendance to each of the members that actually showed up for the crew evaluations report. More detail about this, we did a separate briefing on the crew evaluations report on another one of these videos. But for now, it's suffice to know that we need to know who attended which missions and when. So that's when we're looking at the mission attendance report. We are also going to look at the apologies list for the people who weren't able to attend. And then we will, by a method of exclusion, we will then know who did not attend and who did not offer an excuse. So people who just didn't pitch and just didn't let us know they weren't coming. Those are the people that are going to have FTRIs assigned. So what is it? What is an FTRI? Failed to report in is a disciplinary protocol allocated to a member on the basis of a dereliction of duty under specific circumstances. So what are those circumstances? If a crew member either ignores the invitation to a priority one event, so no response, or reports that they will attend but then doesn't show up, no show, the requirements are met, and the mission commander has the authority to assign a fail to report in to the crew member. So it is the chief medical officer's duty as the mission commander of the blood donation mission to assign that fail to report in to the crew member. That is then either approved or rejected by the command staff while performing the mission log. So in other words, what you have is, if we had a blood donation mission and you had every intention of attending, but something happened on the day and you couldn't turn up, you have until the end of the month when these mission logs are processed to let us know why you didn't show up. If we don't hear from you by then you're going to be getting an FTRI. So assigning a fail to report in to a crew member is a serious matter and cannot be undertaken lightly. If the mission commander assigns a fail to report in, it is at the discretion of the XO or the CO to overrule that allocation and downgrade the allocation to did not attend instead. If a crew member has been assigned a fail to report in and feels that such allocation is unfair or that there were extenuating circumstances that should count in their favor, they are encouraged to appeal the decision with the XO or CO. So what is a fail to report in? What does that flag mean? So if the flag goes on your file, it actually goes in two places. We have a Trello board for personnel, which is available only to the command staff, where we can keep track of what everybody's doing. And we also have each individual member's promotion track document, which keeps track of what you have earned towards your next rank promotion. So in both of those places, the FDRI is listed and flagged so that we can see when that's happening. Having a failed to report in on your record will disqualify you from all rank promotions, awards, or other recognition or advancement opportunities for 1 year, after which it will be removed from your record. Having multiple fail to report instances on your record concurrently may result in being relieved of active duty status. So what does that mean? We'll disqualify you from all rank promotions, awards, or other recognition or advancement opportunities. That means that even if you've earned eligibility for a rank promotion, the FTRI on your record disqualifies you. You cannot earn a rank promotion on the Dauntless if you have an FTRI. There are, of course, ranks that are above the sphere of influence of the Dauntless. So, for example, rank captain and above are granted by authorities above the commanding officer of the Dauntless. Now, while an FTRI would not automatically disqualify you from these ranks, it would mean that we, as the Dauntless command staff, would not nominate you for the promotion to those ranks. And if somebody else were to nominate you and the awarding authority were to contact us to find out more about you, we would mention specifically the fact that there is an FTRI on your record and that we cannot justify nomination for promotion. That nominating authority, at least that awarding authority, so either the regional coordinator or the executive committee, could then decide whether or not they wanted to take our advice on that. It could decide to give you the rank promotion anyway. That's at their discretion, but we would still offer them that disqualification. The same is true for awards at the regional or fleet level. You wouldn't be automatically disqualified, but we would not nominate you, and we would, if asked for comment, we would inform them about the fact that there's an FTRI in your record, which they could then take into account with deciding whether or not you should be receiving that award. Right, so FTRIs are bad. You don't want one. And if you get one, it takes an entire year for it to go away. If you do get one, you want to be querying it as soon as possible, and but you don't want to be getting one at all. And the way you avoid getting one is, the easiest way is to just come to Priority 1 missions. That's actually what we want. We want everybody to come to the Priority 1 missions. It's as easy as that. Whether you're donating blood or not, just be there. Just show up. Just be there to help everybody and to have a nice time, because that's really what this is all about. If you can't be there, let us know you're not coming, and then that's how you avoid having an FTRI on your record. Because receiving a fail to report in is a serious blight on your reputation. It tells everybody around you that you might not be trustworthy, and you don't want that to be your legacy aboard the Dauntless. So, just to conclude, I asked our new AI-driven emergency medical hologram why he thought it would be important for a member of the Dauntless to attend a blood donation mission. And this is what he said. He said, as a member of the USS Dauntless crew, attending a blood donation mission to give back to the community and make a positive impact on the lives of others. By donating blood, oh, excuse me, I zoomed out. I've misquoted him. Let me start that again. As a member of the Dauntless crew, attending a blood donation mission is a wonderful way to give back to the community and make a positive impact on the lives of others. By donating blood, you'll be helping to save lives and support those in need. Additionally, it's a great opportunity to bond with your fellow crew members and show your commitment to the values of Starfleet. Plus, as a Priority 1 mission, attendance is mandatory, but I'm sure you'll find it a rewarding experience. The EMH, for all his flaws, does happen to be an expert on blood donation missions. He has been programmed with all the relevant information about that kind of thing. So if you have any questions about it, and maybe you're shy to ask me those questions, you are welcome to ask the EMH. He can answer almost any question you can imagine about the blood donation missions. He will even respond to direct messages. So if you don't want to ask him a question in an open channel, you can have a private conversation with him about this stuff too. He can be very helpful in this one specific regard, perhaps less helpful in other ways, but in this way, he's very helpful. All right, that is all the material I wanted to cover. Let's see, do we have any questions? We don't have any questions there. I just wanted to thank everybody who's here. We've got Captain von Koenen, we've got Chief Newton, we've got Lieutenant Kimberly, Colonel Yobert, and Master Chief Kotza. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Again, if you have any questions, you're welcome to drop them in the comments either on YouTube or on Facebook, where we'll be posting this video later. You're welcome to drop me a message directly just about anywhere. And you are also welcome and encouraged to have a conversation with our emergency medical hologram about any of this kind of thing too. If you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes of the briefings with the Admiral, please let us know those as well. But I think other than that, we are going to call it a day. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.